I approached Smokey and I said, "Hey, Smokey, what do you think of the idea of a faucet that is NFT gated? So, depending on which generation of Dongbei you have, it will give you more testnet bearer, and we can also include all the other ecosystem NFTs that have been involved. So it's kind of a perk to people who've been early. They can get extra testnet bearer from the faucet."
BM, and welcome to BlockHunters Voices Episode 9. My name is Joachim Voju, and I'm your host for today. BlockHunters Voices is a platform where we explore the journeys, stories, and insights of blockchain innovators and leaders, as well as the technologies driving their projects. Today, we have a special guest with us. He's been around since the beginning of the Bera ecosystem in 2021. He has a lot of bearish bags, and he's a degenerate cheat poster, and he invented something called cult as a service. Hello, and furthermore, ooga booga. Jani, how is your shit posting life treating you?
Hello, ooga booga to you as well, sir. How's it treating me? It's a fine balance of riding the mental illness, enthusiasm thing, but not spilling over into the other side too hardcore. But happy to be here. This is only the third podcast as Jani,
really?
so happy to be doing it with a fellow validator. It's kind of
Thank you
neat.
very much for being here, Jani. Let's go to the origin of how the honey jar was created. How did the concept come about? What motivated you to create cult as a service? Why did you choose Berachain ecosystem?
So the story starts, I guess, in and around 2021, and I, like many other degens at the time, were kind of hopping around doing stuff in and around DeFi Summer, this type of thing. And there was a lot of leverage trading going on. And to be quite honest with you, I took out a lot of leverage to buy bears. And then we all know what happened in November of 2021. That was around the time that I'd kind of gone full bearer mode into the bears. And so I was a captured audience. And then through 2022, to be honest, the bearers kind of held up a lot of our portfolios through the rebasing mechanism. So whilst a lot of people were experiencing a lot of chop and kind of down-only charts, bears were just over in their corner, honestly having a lot of fun, buoyed by the fact that this rebasing mechanism of the bear JPEGs meant that, the portfolios were kind of being kept afloat. But more interestingly than that, to be honest, and this is a large part of my story, it was very fun. When, that meme of the dog with the house on fire around you, or that kind of girl smiling and behind you there's a house on fire. Those memes, I like them because it kind of felt that way through 2022 into 2021. And this was before cult as a service, this was before the honey jar, but it really laid the foundations, the social foundations, the social fabric, the disposition for kind of turning up each day during those downtimes. A lot of people, if they have the discipline to, check out, kind of leave, go out into the world doing some other stuff until the markets turn around. Some of us stick around each day, and having spaces to turn up to and just shoot the shit, have some fun, it kind of lifts your spirit. It gives you the resolve or tenacity to be at the coalface day in, day out. When you do that, kind of, at least with the way my brain works, you see a lot of dots and you start making pattern recognition, start noticing patterns, emergent themes, and this type of thing. So that was 2022. 2023, I should say a lot of 2022 was talking about what was going on. What are these bears? What is proof of liquidity? If proof of liquidity is created, what does that mean? How might the bear JPEGs feed into that? If proof of liquidity as a system works, what type of landscape would that enable apps to build? What will validators do? This type of thing. So 2022 was, if you go back through in between the shitposting, it was a lot of theorizing by people kind of in the reads who maybe had a sneak preview of the white paper. And in 2023, I created the honey jar to put a lot of that thinking into practice. Maybe that's a long enough intro spiel.
And if I'm not mistaken, the whole Bera ecosystem started from off-topic Discord from Olympus DAO, right?
How the story goes.
Okay. And I heard also some whispers that some of the team behind the honey jar actually came from Olympus DAO.
I can definitely understand where those stories come from. So, for example, I was leveraging ARM at the time, looping the ARM, but instead of looping it to buy more ARM, I was buying bears. So, kind of, if you look at the fresh wallet, you'll see there was a lot of kind of ARM activity on there. And then during the early phases of the honey jar, so to loop back through to talking about the kind of the conditions in 2022, there was a lot of shitposting, a lot of chatting, shooting the shit, thinking about stuff. That then fed into the early phases of the honey jar. We started writing articles that kind of explained our thinking, some of the patterns that we had started to notice. And one of the pieces of analysis that we found interesting, which influenced us, but which we slightly disagreed with, was one, NFTs during 2021 had onboarded a lot more users than, for example, DeFi. If you analyze those wallets, many of those wallets would get onboarded through centralized exchanges, and the most exotic their on-chain activity would get would maybe to swap to a target token that would enable them to purchase an NFT, and then for the most part they then wouldn't really go back to DeFi or do stuff. So there was a narrative at the time that said, if we build stuff, then people will come. Like the on-chain data seemed to indicate that kind of, for example, NFTFi or the intersection between NFTs and DeFi, at least in the case of the analysis as it was released, seemed to give a bearish indicator saying, hey, just because people get onboarded into NFTs doesn't mean they jump across to other on-chain activities such as DeFi. And so when we started the honey jar, I was like, well, that's because you haven't aligned the right incentives. And so quite simply, we set a 33% discount on our NFT mints. We opened up a modal to DeFi Llama's swap aggregator. We had a small tutorial, hey, here's how you swap to this DeFi instrument. What we found was that I think it was something above 80% of minters jumped across over into ARM to get hold of that discount. And during the bear market, I think we generated nearly, $2 million in buy pressure for ARM during that time. So given that history, and I'm a fan of the tech that they've built, I think a lot of what happened in November would have been dampened if they had the RBS system out and rolling them, but it wasn't. So I can definitely understand people having those theories, but for me, underneath it, the more important thing is how do you introduce stuff to people that they might initially have hesitation about. So really what I'm in the business of is figuring out how to create fun experiences that can get people to change their minds about things.
What I'm very curious is, how did you build this community skills? Did you have prior experience, or it was just go with the flow in the Discord and having fun in the beginning and baby steps along that way?
Can I give you the honest answer?
Yeah, of course, man.
I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. I've been in crypto full time since 2013. I've seen a lot of crazy shit in that time.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I've spoken to a lot of people. Before crypto, I was a serial entrepreneur. Everything that I had ever built failed, but it always failed in a different, new, and novel way, never in the same way. So I was already arriving into crypto with a business mindset, with honestly the school of hard knocks behind me. And each cycle that I've been through in crypto, I've picked up a different set of skills, experiences, observations, and you build up a toolbox, a conceptual toolbox, or a practical toolbox, or a technical toolbox. So I wouldn't even be able to tell you the journey I've taken has been a strange one.
Oh, interesting journey, man. I have a question right now. Can you tell us who is Jani? If that can be answered in some way that, I don't know, you don't give any hints about your identity?
If you find out, please let me know. It's like every time Jani changes the PFP, it's like a different part of the personality comes out. I'll tell you this. This is the fourth time in the crypto space I've started a new identity. Each time that I do it, I do not commingle any of the prior.
So there is no connection with the prior identities?
None at all. I'm in some group chats where there's 5 people in the group chats, and 3 of the people are 3 of my separate identities, and the other 2 people in the room have not clocked that the other 3 are totally just one person. But they come from, when you build out, at least the way that I do it is I'll start with a simple PFP. You create a name, and then you just shitpost on Twitter about something that is interesting to you. So, for example, with the bears, let's start there. That's what we're speaking about. I'd leveraged into bears. So I'd taken out bet against my own position, and I came in hard, just like smashing the buy button on all of the bears, creating chaos. I then created a Twitter profile, and I was talking about if you keep your bears listed, then I'm going to sweep them up. And then I think someone else called me the janitor, or maybe I called myself the janitor, I can't remember. And I just chatted with whoever interacted with me, no matter whether they were also accounts with one account or whatever. And so over time, Janitor developed a significantly unique social graph compared to any of my prior identities. I've got a DeFi identity, I've got one from real world asset thing, I've got one that's more P2P that never touches any of the financialized crypto end of the spectrum, and this type of thing. So some of them are in closer orbits than others, but if you truly don't commingle or draw on any of your prior contacts or connections, you can create quite distinct social graphs. And within those social graphs, you start generating quite unique and different types of knowledge, connections, ideas, connections for things that you can do with people. Quite often it's the case when you bump into people on the internet who don't care whether you have 10 followers or 100 followers, but they're willing to talk with you in very minute detail about something in special interest. That is where a lot of value comes from, to be honest with you. And because I've been on the internet a long time, I've seen now this combination of cryptography plus the internet plus chat plus people's special interests. Like, I've been in small IRC chats with less than 10 people that's spawned entire protocols because people were talking, hey, wouldn't it be cool if something like this worked? And then someone comes back and is like, oh, I've spun up an idea, what do you think? And then those things go on to become protocols which then build communities around them and this type of thing. But at heart, it starts as some type of group chat with some people with a special interest. And it's not all builders even necessarily, like a lot of this stuff it's quite philosophically rich. So you also have people who are into the underlying principles that maybe inform some of this text. So early Bitcoin days, you had the Bitcoin forums, Bitcoin talk forums had quite rich discussions about all different types of things. It attracted a particular type of crowd. And I think you can still have those experiences these days. And the way that I've found to achieve that is, to be honest, starting fresh and not taking a shortcut.
That's the best way, man, and the single way. So basically, if I want to start fresh in crypto right now and I want to build connections, I have to just join conversations with people in the communities, right?
I'm sure it'll be different for every person. At least that's how it's worked with me. Just find people.
Find people, put the correct questions, be interested, making follow-up, stuff like that, I assume, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I should also, I don't want to realize also, these days, when I arrived to crypto, I arrived with, I don't think, how much did I spend on crypto? I've never spent more than, let's say, 1,000 US dollars buying stuff. It's just because I was early and I didn't get completely wrecked along the way. So I do have the additional weapon in my toolbox. I've got capital now. I can deploy. So it's the game for me is different than it would be for someone who's starting really fresh. I don't want to kind of skip past that quite significant thing. But I think the way that I've done it hasn't really changed from when I had no resources on the capital side through to now. The thing I will say though is a lot of people reach out to Jani saying, hey, can I work with you? And what you have to understand is like once something is working, you're getting tens of those messages every single day. And I have no doubt that a lot of those people will be exceptional people. But the capacity for founders or people who are already really at max capacity, kind of going full throttle with stuff that's already in action, asking someone to slow down what they're doing to then look at what you're asking them.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
Is maybe, yeah, it's maybe a when you break it down in that way, it's perhaps an unrealistic ask of another human being. It's a bit like a train is going down a railway, and you're kind of like asking it to slow
Please
down.
Stop for me.
Up. It's yeah. However, if you get ahead of where the train is and you notice, oh shit, there's a boulder on the railway track, I'm going to move that boulder. And then you say, yo, there's a boulder, but don't worry, I've done this. So in that metaphor, kind of what I mean is, and this gets a bit into how some of the people have worked at THJ is that, yes, sometimes we'll put out a word saying, hey, we need someone in this department. We get hundreds of people saying, here's my CV.
How big is
or
the team right now?
Around 20.
Oh, that's something. That's something. Congrats on that.
And there's other people, for example, who've in one example, it's like, here are all these dashboards that I've built. I've seen you talking about this thing on Twitter. Here are some dashboards for some data that answers the types of questions that your thing. So in that example, someone's removed a boulder, they've supplied work that actually amplifies.
They anticipated your need and came forward with a solution, not a question.
Yeah. So it's an unfortunately rare thing that people do, but I think what it boils down to is if you generate value, in and of itself, that's its own reward. You learn skills, you develop it in this type of thing. If you generate value that happens to be in a close enough constellation to a cluster of people who also value that type of work, you stand a much better chance of differentiating yourself from someone who's sending in a CV. That's not to say it's going to guarantee you a role, but that's why I think it's in this thing of boiling it down to spend time on things that you find interesting anyway, that you would be,
Yeah, that is a really good advice for somebody that is starting out right now, because in the crypto industry and in the times that we live in, it's not like in the old ways. You send a CV, you have like an interview with someone, they ask you some questions, a very traditional way. Here you have to have initiative and do the right stuff.
So in the case of marketing lead, had never come across bears before, but happened to come across, hey, we're looking for marketing people. Read every single thing we had written on bears and came back with what he'd learned from our writing. And then also said, if with my fresh eyes, I think you're missing this and this and this. Here's an example.
That's a good strategy too, yes.
And that was that was giving work for free. There was no guarantee. And then also it was like, and also by the way, I've done this, this, and this, which showcases certain things. So at that point, you've de-risked the connection. You've done a lot of. You haven't asked someone else to slow down. That's just one example. In each of the contributors within THJ, that is how they're there, and the work inside it is the exact same, more or less. Like we have missions. One mission, for example, is we want to be a gateway to Berachain. We've got standards and quality, so there's quality control and standards. A minimum expectation that we expect for stuff being shipped. How you achieve Berachain, THJ becoming a gateway to Berachain is kind of up to you. So for example, let's boil this down to a specific example. Prior to the V1 of Berachain testnet launching, I approached Smokey. I said, hey Smokey, what do you think of the idea of a faucet that is NFT gated? So depending on which generation of Dongbe you have, it will give you more testnet Bera. And we can also include all the other ecosystem NFTs that have been involved. So it's kind of a perk to people who've been early. They can get extra testnet Bera from the faucet. Smokey liked the idea. So this, in my example, I didn't ask Smokey to slow down and just say, hey, what's the faucet? I said, here's a proposal for something that will add value to all of the holders of all of the different ecosystem NFTs. He's like, chill, that sounds good. We signed off, we shipped it. We then got an absolute mountain of inbound traffic. We were hitting a million unique users per month to the site, required us to scale the infra and this type of thing. A lot of them would have been kind of bots, but a lot of them had a lot of on-chain activity as well. But we didn't stop there. The CTO, Soju, he's big into games and this type of thing. So he's like, well, if we want to be a gateway to Berachain, and we have all of this traffic coming through the faucet, and we have all of these partners, why don't we create interesting kind of based on a similar experience to Cub Scouts? Like, why don't we create these badges that we can mint on testnet and give our partners an opportunity to tailor make their own types of experiences through their testnet apps or their socials that introduces these new projects to the community. So in that example, Jani didn't say, hey, we need to build a product. It was that we all understand the mission, and Soju, who has a special interest in gaming and this type of thing, has essentially stood up what has now become CupQuests, which is essentially our own questing infrastructure, and had the freedom to do that. And and then shipped it, brought in people around it, and delivered it. So each of those phases there, it kind of a bit demonstrates the type of thing that I'm talking about. And you can see perhaps why THJ is a bit the shape it is a lot of the way that we are is a response to the emergent properties of the ecosystem that we find ourselves in. And we have the capability to deliver things. And we've been in the space now, the Bera space, thinking about this stuff since 2021. So we spot opportunities, we make offers, and then depending on adoption, depending on the particularities of how stuff is received or not received, we then either wrap that into a product if it has found some type of PMF, and this type of thing.
Since you've mentioned the faucet and cup quests, the Honey Jar now provides a variety of other services, including incubation, partnerships, marketing. Can you break down all the services and explain the value proposition for each one?
Yeah, deal. However, do you want the business answer or do you want the Bera adventurer answer?
Bera adventure, man. We are here for the Bera ecosystem.
Okay, look, you're repping the Bera headless t-shirt. You had to bear.
Yeah.
You're one of the validators in the Bera eco, right?
Yes.
And but you also validate in other networks.
Yes.
Is that right? When did you first hear of Berachain, or when did you first when did they first pop on your radar?
Early 2023, the beginning of the year.
And so this podcasting series is newish, right?
Yes. This is
and
the 9th
how long
episode.
have you been? And how long have you been validating in these other ecos?
2020.
Yeah, and in that time, so between 2020 and now, have you spoken with other validators in this type of a way in any other networks?
Yes, of course. We have a good network of validators and we talk all the time.
But I mean, have you produced content and this type of thing and released it in this type of way?
Yes, like the podcast series.
Yes.
Yes. We did for Movement Labs and for other partners of ours.
But I mean, it's a bit recent, right?
Yeah, it's recent. This is the 9th episode right now.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm interested in is since you've arrived to, if you've been running validators since 2020, you've been doing well. I would list all of the different networks, but there's a lot of them. You've got tooling and infra stuff that kind of covers that type of sector with infra tooling and support and this type of thing.
Exactly.
And at some point now, you're moving into what I'd consider kind of almost KOL, but at that intersection of infrastructure and this type of thing. And I'm wondering, given that this is the 9th episode, and given that you became aware of Berachain in 2023, I'm wondering what impact, if any, the Bera Eco has had on your approach to validating and thing. Do you know what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, it's been. I don't know if the Berachain ecosystem did not exist. I don't know if I would be doing this kind of stuff right now.
So, I guess to what degree we spoke about this a bit before coming on air, but in this balance of Bera with the POL design involving validators in a materially different way than other proof of stake systems, and on the other hand, the Bera community, was it one more strongly than the other that has encouraged you to get into this type of interviewing and creating content and almost, I guess, stepping into a bit more of a brand for BlockHunters of, when people think of validators and Berachain, like, you're now one of the people that they're going to think of, your face, this show, that type of thing.
I think basically is like 50-50 because POL puts validators in spotlight, right? So that's very important. It puts protocols to work with the validators. No other ecosystem does that. But rather than this, you have a strong community with great people that are building every day and coming with new things and initiatives. So this sort of actions made me to come out of my shell at a personal and professional level as well.
And so this was the Bera adventurer answer versus the business suit, me just telling you about the product suite, is there's something for people in Bera Eco, which is a transformative process at not just a professional level, not just a technical level. There's also a cultural thing going on that I think is worth talking about more. Because, I can't really think of many egos where the validators are linked in this way. And in that sense, I think we can already see, to my mind, you are an example of some of the thesis that the Berachain Foundation had in action. Now, this is pretty main that we still need to see a lot of this stuff playing live, but at least at the social layer since 2021, there's been so many examples of us having small theses about how things might work, and then seeing some evidence that, hey, actually that does seem to play that way. When you first saw the Bera, what was your initial impression?
Good question. My initial impression it was that something that seemed so retarded could actually be so professional.
Booga booga.
Booga.
I think that what do you want to call it? Discordance, mental discordance, being able to hold two things at the same time, has been a filter. Not everyone can hold those two things in hand. Not everyone does, and not everyone whatever. And a lot of the people who've passed through that filter, it's created quite a what's the word I'm looking for? Dense is the wrong. Well, dense is like stupid. I don't mean that. Like rich, concentrated. It's quite a concentrated culture of people who can hold both left and right curve, if we're using that analogy, and builders who don't mind not being taken seriously straight away. They're happy to build serious stuff, but maybe in a playful way, let's say. So back to your question in terms of the adventuring stuff. THJ, because we've been around since 2021, we've had our own version of many of these transformative filters where we notice, if we just today announced a soft announce of Interpol. Recently, if you follow the kind of meme supercycle thesis and watch kind of Pump.Fun and this type of thing, one of the things that they do is you lock some amount of your LP to say, hey, we're not going to completely rogue this, to try and convey confidence to the marketplace if you're an anonymous dev. In a poll landscape, locking your LP means that you forego the yield on that LP in a DOL landscape. So it was our observation that there's going to be millions of or thousands of meme coins on Berachain. It's just a fact of the matter. The tools that people have to try and speedrun trust are a disadvantage to both the builders and probably the community as well, if we were just to lock or burn LP. So Interpol is a product that we've rolled out on that observation that enables protocols to lock that LP but to not lock the yield. So we whitelist certain protocols that they can farm in, say Infrared, Kodiak, Berachain, Yeet as examples. So that then interesting flywheels can be created and feed into whatever that meme coin is doing. But the LP users are assured isn't going to be rugged because it's in smart contracts that THJ runs. So we observed a need in the market that's emerging through our position of just being very 100% focused on this sector and also observing what part of the cycle we're in, what's happening on other chains and this type of thing. And then quickly rolling that out. I think from idea phase, observing that that would be needed, that there was a whole host of meme token launches in Berachain already, having gone around and spoken to all of the different teams, and no one had no one had thought about this yet. So then we built this product, and now we're going back to those same protocols and saying, hey, just integrate this contract and this type of thing. So we've got products which cut across DeFi. We've got some meme coins, MemeFi. We've got a whole bunch of NFTs, NFTFi, GameFi. We've got some stuff coming up, and a bunch of the different creative stuff. So to come back to the incubator question, really what that means is teams are working closely with us, and they have access to some of our development capacity, capabilities, the creative studio, this type of thing.
And also knowledge connections, right?
Yeah, I mean, in some instances, the knowledge might be, hey, don't do this, or have you thought about that? And I'll be honest, the two projects that we've incubated so far are the Bera Buddies and Bullas. So they're two very different projects, and they just have needed really different things. And they're ultimately kind of managed and controlled by their founders with a lot of support from us. But to be honest, on the incubation side, we're still figuring out the details there of how exactly that looks like. Really For us, it's if we see that there's something that the ecosystem brings extra value, we'll support it.
Yeah,
That's the main thing.
that sounds great. The train is not stopping. It's good to hear that. I want to talk a little about the NFTs from the honey jar ecosystem, because right now
Yes.
you have the honeycomb plus 3 generations of honey jar, up to a total of 6, right?
Yep.
But you also incubated some other projects that have NFTs as well.
So I don't know any project that's minted and launched as many NFTs as us. We're NFT accelerationists. There's also, I don't know if you've seen a whole bunch of free mints on Zora.
Yeah.
I think by this point we're in the hundreds of thousands of NFTs. There's two different forks that we could go down here, but maybe I will. Let's just whistle through them really quickly. So, right in the early of 2023, we released some articles which were mintable. To be honest with you, the initial article that I wrote, I just made it an open mint. And then the next one, I just on the spur of the moment thought, wouldn't it be funny to model it on the Bear's rebasing mechanism. So the first article, there was 107. The next one was 200 and whatever. The next one was, not the rebasing mechanism, but just purely the number. And this was again during a very quiet on-chain time. And the Bera's pounced on it, and we broke mirror in that first. There was so much demand so quickly, it completely fucked mirror up, which is the service that we were minting through. And then it kind of snowballed from there. I was like, oh, okay, people want to mint these things. People want to take a directional expression of, hey, I'm early here, I'm kind of invested. And so we created a social game on top, which was, given that there was a lower number of that first article, only 107, we then said, okay, if you collect all 7 of these articles, that's what we call Infinity Gate. Infinity Gate will give you 2 of something in the future. To be honest, right at the beginning, we hadn't fully figured it out. Just we were responding to the emergent property that there was enough of a groundswell of attention and interest, and people willing to put their money behind that, which I guess behind it is also taking a bet on us as a team of, if I give you this funds now for this article, so it's a fair exchange, you will deliver value to me of at least this amount. Ideally more than the opportunity cost of me going away and doing something else in crypto. So that's essentially what's going on. And there's been a number of those types of mechanisms. The 2 that come to mind are Infinity Gate, which was those initial articles, which essentially is going to end up with 2 seats in ApiologyDAO. And in and around the Bera, we had this a whole number of mints. We had articles, bespoke videos made by some Bera, music made by Baby Bera, toasters made by gods. And depending on if you collected entire sets, that will give you a different benefit. So you can kind of think about this in a similar way that trading cards or this type of thing, you can have ultra rares, super rare, this type of thing, tradables, collectibles. It's just that in our case, all of these items are targetable. So I come from a background of I was investing in real-world asset tech back in 2017, and a lot of the conception of non-fungible tokens back then was around the interface of the digital and the real. So it wasn't just real-world assets in terms of financial flows in a kind of a centrifuge way. It was in that sci-fi type of a way of objects will have some type of NFC, NFT type thing, and it will allow you to do things in the real world. What would that need? And so I was already back in 2017, my brain had imagined just NFTs everywhere. And a big part of this is the kind of metaphor of money and value flowing through a system, not as blood flows and circulates around the body, but instead as a nervous system. If you think about it as a nervous system, then essentially all of these NFTs that are spread around are a bit like neurons and synapses, and depending on their kind of composition, where they are in the body, what type of a system they're kind of connected in with, those clusters will feed in and out into other systems. So essentially what we've done with this NFT accelerationism is we can, in a really granular way, target quite specific groups of early Bera interested users. When we couple that with data analytics about prior on-chain activity on either ETH mainnet or L2s, you can start getting quite a rich picture of holders. So each of the NFTs that we've released, and there's been a lot of them, feed into other stuff that we do, whether it's some of the products that we have coming down the line, whether it's meme coins, whether it's this type of thing. We're able to essentially have a very rich map of who we want to target and how. And a lot of the kind of challenge for these types of systems is just to ensure that time and money spent is at least or at least equal to the input. And I think the opportunity that we have with crypto is to get quite creative with this stuff. Now, I should say none of this is solicitation to buy anything in particular, or to do anything with any expectation further down the line. But I will say, as someone who is a designer of incentive systems, cyberneticians of the 70s could only dream of the being able to target in some type of value exchange mechanism in such a granular way.
Since we are talking about NFTs, what do you think about the latest scandal? OpenSea received the worst notice from SEC, threatening to sue because they believe the NFTs are securities and stuff like that.
Hamilton. I don't know. To be honest with you, I've been collecting Pokemon cards for so long. It's all. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a regulator. At the end of the day, I'm a tech geek, nerd, building stuff in open systems, and I can't tell the future. I don't have an informed opinion, if I'm honest.
Okay. I think it's just the usual fad on Twitter, right?
Well, yeah. We're in such a fast-moving space, and regulation and this type of thing is necessarily slow. I've accepted I'm the type of person who's quite far out on the risk curve in terms of what I'm willing to play with at the frontiers. I think in terms of the more buttoned up products that we have, that stuff where it needs to be is kind of has a table of lawyers advising around the best approach to doing things. I think for just generally operating in an emergent market and operating system, there's always going to be kind of a risk trade-off to known unknowns, known knowns, this type of thing.
Thank you for that, Jani. You mentioned before ApiologyDAO. Can you explain what it is and what's the inspiration behind its name?
So a lot of stuff in the Bera eco is bear branded. So apiology is the study of bees. These are quite an interesting set of creatures to model systems on, just in terms of the sum of the parts being kind of greater in sum than they can achieve individually. ApiologyDAO has formed a number of partnerships with a growing number of projects and protocols in the Bera eco, and it will be operating its treasury kind of as a kind of a whale in the Bera eco that is DAO governed. THJ will be service provider to the DAO. Does that answer the question, or is there any part that you want to drill into?
No, I'm curious. I know that the spots are already allocated, like 70% to early contributors. How can you get a spot right now if you want to join?
So in 2023, have you heard of ApiologyDAO?
Yes.
So for those who haven't heard of ApiologyDAO, there was a weekend, I think sometime in March, where it turns out now a lot of this was spawned and encouraged by a prolific Bera called Bera Pope. But a whole bunch of mini Janis, people running alt accounts that were some Jani derivative, popped up in a March time, to the point where I had people messaging me being like, how do you run this? And it also came as a surprise to me. And the basic idea behind what they were doing was they saw that a lot of the stuff with the jars that were going into ApiologyDAO were essentially a numbers game. Inside jar number one, there's, I think, without going into the value of it, there's a OG bonga and all its rebases inside that smart contract. Once all of the jars mint out, then one jar holder will receive that bong bear and all of its rebases, as well as some apes. And then presumably also, if there is a foundation drop to bears and the future rebase. So it's by this point, it's fairly chunky, let's put it that way.
Okay.
And so the Majanis essentially said, well, if we group our jars together, then and we end up winning, then we can split it. So it's a bit like a lottery circle in that type of a way that people buy lottery tickets together. It's not a lottery, I should say, but in that way of kind of grouping together. And we over at THJ kind of looked across at what the Majani folk were doing, and we're like, that's really interesting. And then we proposed to them, hey, we'd like to acquire you. I think that deal all up was worth around 2 million or something like that, give or take. So that initial 70% is actually made up of a whole bunch of the holders from Majani who are just kind of community members who were kind of super bullish and early. So it's not just, I would say, early contributors in that sense. It's essentially people who wanted to secure their spot, who were kind of in and around the ecosystem at that kind of end user point. So to get in for the remaining slots, the only way in is to essentially trade one honeycomb and one of each of the
honey jars.
One of each gen of the jars. And you trade those 7 NFTs and you receive an ApiologyDAO seat. The seat essentially then you become a part of what we call bees of production. So you're part of that kind of treasury group mechanism that's operating all of the kind of stakes that the DAO has in a growing number of DeFi protocols on Berachain verify.
Yeah, but right now there is only the honeycomb and 3 generations of the jars. If you buy
Yes,
all of
so
them, can you join, or do you have to wait for all the 6 to be live?
You have to wait. You have to wait. I will also say once it is full, there'll be a auction mechanism. So if someone wants to exit, someone else can come in. If no one wants to exit, then a new seat is spawned each day. So there will be growth slowly. However, if there's a number of people wanting to leave, then it doesn't. There isn't inflation. It kind of achieves either steady growth or it stops growing if people want to leave.
Exactly.
So if you do miss out,
you still have a
there
chance.
will be mechanisms. Yeah.
Yes. I want to go a little in the beginning in 2021. Did you at some point wanted to join the Berachain team because you are close with them, or did you want to do your own thing, the THJ?
I'd make an awful employee. What makes you great at shit posting also makes you unhinged as an employee. And also, look, I wouldn't even say THJ is made up of, we've got about 20 people, and a very large percentage of them are ex-founders of things themselves. So I wouldn't even say it's that. And I think if you've been a founder, or you have that type of get up and go attitude, you can make an exceptional contributor to things. But I think if you're in a certain phase of your arc, then maybe you wouldn't make the best contributor. So I think there's never been a moment where I felt like I could deliver more value to Berachain from inside the foundation than from outside.
Yeah, that makes sense. After this hour we've talked, that really makes sense because you've contributed a lot and you hopped in front of the train, as the metaphor you've mentioned.
I think most chains, it's not going to hurt to have a vibrant and dedicated community side org all in. And it's not going to hurt an L1 to have a really diverse set of community things. So in Berachain, what I mean by that is there's cults with their own weird language. Within those cults, you have subcults. Within those subcults, you have turf wars. So you have and then you've got other parts of the Bera eco that look at those sectors being like, man, those guys are weird, right? But then everyone's looking at them and being like, wow, those guys are weird. You've got people. I don't know how to put it. In Berachain, everyone's a bear, and everyone's a bear in a different way, in their own special, unique, and redacted way. And to be a bear, you don't just need to be a builder. Like, it's quite like anyone can put on the bear head.
Exactly.
Community, builder, investor, validator. Like the bear head, to be a bear is, I don't know how to put it, but I think we used to call it getting bear pilled. Don't know if people are still using this type of a language.
No, I never heard of it,
No.
but makes sense when you say
Okay.
it.
Yeah, in 2021, 2022, we were like, yeah, let's, like, how do we bear pill people? THJ, really, to be honest, is just a venture studio version of bear pilling people.
Nice. Who is the mastermind behind the Honey Jar Twitter account? Can you get a shout out for the intern?
Oh, fucking Jani was the intern until a few months ago. I think it was after the Pudgy Penguin campaign. So maybe, look, here's the thing. We chuck ideas around together. So the idea is quite emergent from within the team, and there's a lot of people who contribute to stuff. So, for example, Jacob and Gods were like, "Yo, it would be funny if we had some banter with some other communities." And then I can't remember if it was Gods or if it was Jacob, and they were like, "Let's ping the penguins. That would be funny." And then I can't remember exactly how it happened, but I think Luca at the time commented to Smokey, and so we saw our chance. The meme people, they came up with the meme, but then I wrote the memes, the tweet. And then Luca and Co, we got into a GIF war with them for there was a whole month of Bera times Pudgy Penguin chaos. And to be honest, I'll sit down caffeinated and just like do a stream of consciousness set of tweets. But after the Pudgy Penguin campaign, I was like, I need to stop being the intern. I've been the
intern for so long.
I'm intern on my own account. I can't do all of them. So these days, to be honest, it's Fedor, head of marketing, and I don't, Fedor. I don't know if Fedor self-identifies as an intern. So I'll leave that up to him. But these days it's Fedor with the Apiculture, so Gods, Jacob. We've got a meme room of about 15 artists. Who, they're pretty good at what they do by this point. On the community side, Petra would probably kill me if I called her the intern, but she's like the intern. So that's why I might get a whole like horde of angry Petra simps coming at me for calling Petra the intern. Each of the 20 contributors in THJ, I think, contributes to the collective intern that is THJ
Basically,
in some way.
the intern is a group of people.
Yeah, we don't have any interns. Like, if there's 20 of us, we all chip in wherever. I do a lot of the shit posting. I think, to be honest, the team then tries to pretends to be me.
You have a great team over there, Jani. Before you wrap this up, do you have a message for the community?
Booga booga, hello. And yeah, I've no message. It's just really fun. I think the thing that has made a bunch of us stick around in Berachain is having fun together, and it comes in waves. There's like different eras of types of fun together, and I'm enjoying each new wave of people who arrives brings their own flavor of fun. So I'm here for it. Just the more fun you're having in the Bera eco, I think that's how we win.
That's how we win, exactly. I want to thank you once again, Jani, for coming to BlockHunters Voices episode 9. You and all the bears out there have our full support.
And if you're a bearer out there and you haven't delegated to the BlockHunters group, I think you should definitely support these folks. Like, undelegate some from THJ and put it over in BlockHunters. Let's like get them up a few pages, just because I think these folks are an example of Berachain working at the social layer, at the validator layer. So, hats off to you and thanks for the invite. This is my third podcast. You've done well. I go on weird tangents. I'm sure you had lots of questions you didn't ask, but yeah. I'm glad you're Bera Pilled.
I'm Bera Pilled.
I'm glad you're here. It's ooga booga, and yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to your other, because you've only released 4,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or 5.
Exactly.
So there's some more coming down the pipeline.
Yes. Every Tuesday.
Who would you? Is there any Bera that you'd want to interview that we can help get on or link up with you?
I think Lord Pemberton from It and maybe Dev Bear, but Dev Bear I already spoke with Smokey about this, so I think the next one would be Lord Pemberton from It. And also, if you have any suggestions, they are very welcome.
Okay, I just you're having a look at. Sorry for your loss, and well, yeah, I'll see you on the other side of that. Yeet, I guess.
Yeah, man.
Thanks.
Thank you, man.
Booga, booga.
Booga, booga.